بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن أحسن الكلام كلام الله وخير الهدى هدى محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وإن شر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. Okay, so today we start the 7th nullifier of Islam, and this is the 12th lesson in our series. In the previous lesson we looked at the issue of mocking the religion, mocking the messenger of Allah ﷺ, or mocking anything that he came with, that this is from the nullifiers of Islam. And so following this, we have the 7th nullifier, so I'll read the text. So Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad bin Abdul-Wahhab, Rahimahullah, he said, Al-Naqid al-Sabi', the 7th nullifier, as-sihr, which is magic. وَمِنْهُ الصَّرْفُ وَالْعَطْفُ. And from it, and he mentions two types, as-sarf and al-ataf. And we'll discuss what these are. فَمَنْ فَعَلَهُ أَوْ رَضِيَ بِهِ كَفَرْ. So whoever engages in it, whoever engages in magic, or is pleased with it, then he has disbelieved. وَالدَّلِيلُ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى. And the evidence is the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, وَمَا يُعَلِّمَانِ مِنْ أَحَدٍ حَتَّى يَقُولَا إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ فِتْنَةٌ فَلَا تَكْفُرْ. So the proof for this, meaning that magic is disbelief, is an ayah in which, we'll come to the verse as well in full inshallah ta'ala, but it's in relation to the angels who were sent down to teach magic to the people as a trial for the people. But before they did so, they were ordered to say, as Allah says here in this ayah, that they never taught anyone this magic until they first said, indeed we are a trial, so do not disbelieve. Indeed we are a trial, so do not disbelieve. So this is the text of the Nawaqid, the nullifier, and we'll begin first of all with the brief commentary of Shaykh Muhammad Aman al-Jaami Rahmahullah ta'ala. So the Shaykh begins first of all by describing or by giving the definition of the word sihr. What is meant by the word sihr, or magic, in English? So linguistically, from a linguistic point of view, when we look at this word, then we see that it refers to a matter which is light or hidden, something which is subtle, something which is very, very minute, or it's hard to perceive, and it is not really, a person won't be aware of it except those who are actually aware of the affair itself. Meaning those who are aware, but anyone else will not really be aware of that issue because it's very subtle, it's very hidden, it's very minute. And another way to look at it as well, another definition which is given, is anything whose cause is hidden or subtle. And this is a very good definition. Anything whose cause is hidden or subtle. And this word sihr, you see that it comes from the root sin, ha, ra, and there are some other derivatives, some other nouns which come from the same three letters. From them is sahar, and this refers to the last part of the night. And likewise we also have sahur, which is the meal that we have just before dawn during Ramadan. And so these words, they relate to that which is hidden, because it's in the dark part of the night, at a time when most people are asleep, and it's a time of concealment. And this is the general idea or the general concept. So from that you get a general idea of the word. As-sihr refers to that which is hidden, it's subtle, it's that whose ways and means or whose causes can't be really be perceived and are not known, or they can't be perceived. So this is the linguistic meaning of as-sihr. As for its meaning in the Sharia and what is intended by it in the texts of the Quran and the Sunnah, then it refers to the following. It refers to azaim wa uqad. So it refers to incantations or spells or knots which are tied and upon which are blown. So the practitioner of this magic, he has either incantations, things which he says, like spells as they say, or things which he ties together into knots and blows upon them. And as a result, this sihr is something which does three things. There are three things that it does. It harms, yadur wa yumrid, and it causes disease, and wa yaqtul haqiqatan, and it kills in reality. Right? So magic has these three effects. It will either harm a person in one form or another, in his mind, in his body, or it will cause him to fall ill, or it will cause him to die. So this is the definition of magic in the Sharia. It is incantations which are said, or other things like tying knots, and there are many other ways and means as well, but basically it's a ways and means, and through that a person is led to be harmed, to fall ill, or to die. So that's the basic definition according to the fuqaha, according to the jurists. And so once this is clear, once we understand the definition of magic linguistically in terms of the Sharia, then the ruling upon it is that to learn it is disbelief. So we are not even speaking about practicing it. To merely learn it is kufr. And the reason for this is that magic is something that cannot be affected except by engaging in disbelief. This is the nature of magic itself. And the reason for this shall become clear as we proceed through the rest of this material, if not this week, then next week, because this lesson will be in two parts. It is because magic obviously involves the use of the jinn, and that's why the ways and means or the causes of magic is hidden and subtle, because it involves the use of the jinn. And so the magician from the human side wins the assistance of the devils on the side of the jinn, and that assistance comes at a cost. That magician, in order for the jinn to obey him, then the magician will have to commit disbelief, or actions which entail disbelief, or words which entail disbelief. And so these magicians, they basically sell themselves for a miserable price. They agree to commit shirk, they agree to do actions of disbelief in order to win the assistance of the devils. And then the devils, whenever the magician does a spell, the devil will then go and will implement whatever the magic is, and it will go and it will harm a person, or it will cause a person to be ill, or cause a person to die. And so the point here then is that no magic is effected except by the assistance of the shayateen, the devils, and the devils do not obey the men, do not do favors for the men up until they commit acts of disbelief. And that's why it is an automatic presumption. It is an automatic presumption that anyone who engages in sihr, then he is a kafir. And upon that, the hukm in Islam is that sihr is kufr and the sahir is a kafir. And likewise, as this ayah indicates, to merely learn it is disbelief as well. Putting aside, engaging in it. Just to learn it is disbelief as well. So once we have this introduction, so we've looked at the linguistic meaning, we've looked at the Sharia meaning of the word sihr, and we've looked at the ruling, the hukm upon sihr. Now we're going to go through the text of what Shaykh al-Islam said here. So he said, وَمِنْهُ الصَّرْفُ وَالْعَطَفُ. الصَّرْفُ وَالْعَطَفُ mentions two forms or two manifestations of magic. Now these two forms of magic, they refer to a sarf is when magic is done in order to turn a husband away from his wife, or vice versa, to turn a wife away from her husband. This is a sarf. And al-ataf, which literally means to bind together, to connect together, to annex together. This is when basically someone tries to bring a man and a woman together, or to make a husband love his wife, or to make a wife love her husband. This is known as al-ataf. And these are two forms and two manifestations of magic that people engage in. And obviously there are other forms and manifestations as well, but these are the common ones that you see people falling into. And all of these forms and all of these types are, the ruling upon them is disbelief for the one who engages in them, or for the one who is pleased with them. It is disbelief. And so the evidence for that is the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal in Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah 2, verse 102, in that long verse that speaks about Sulaiman alayhi salam and the shayateen. So within this verse it occurs, وَمَا يُعَلِّمَانِ مِنْ أَحَدٍ حَتَّى يَقُولَا إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ فِتْنَةٌ فَلَا تَكْفُرْ. That they did not teach it to anyone until they first said, indeed, we are a tribulation, so do not disbelieve. So the angels, the two angels, Harut and Marut, they said, لا تكفر, لا تكفر. Do not disbelieve. And this is clear evidence that to learn sihr, to learn magic, it is disbelief. Like for example, a person goes to Waterstones, for example, or Amazon, and orders a book on magic, and within this book there are the practical details of all of the magic, its time, its place, along with all the astronomy, because it involves astronomy as well. And a person learns all the intricate details and the particulars and so on and so forth. This action itself is disbelief. This is disbelief for a person just to merely learn how magic is done. So the Shaykh then goes on to explain that this issue of magic then, obviously magic exists, magic is present, and magic has been present since the time of Nuh alayhi salam. And the evidence for this is in the Quran, is that every messenger was accused by his people of being a sahir, of engaging in sihr. Right? So the people who disbelieved, they tried to say to their people that this man is just a magician, just a sorcerer. Don't listen to him. He's trying to bewitch you and to misguide you and to so on and so forth. So this is a proof that sihr has been present for a long time. But in this particular case, when these angels were sent down to Babylon, to Babil in Iraq, they were sent down as a test and a trial from Allah Azza wa Jal to distinguish between the one who believes and the one who disbelieves. So these angels came and they began to teach the people magic. And they gave them this warning, obviously, that, do not disbelieve. You should not learn magic. Do not learn magic. We're going to teach it, but we're advising you not to learn magic. And if you do learn magic, then this is disbelief. So this is clearly a trial. This is why they were sent. And if you look at the next verse, which follows immediately after this verse, verse 103, Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, وَلَوْ أَنَّهُمْ آمَنُوا وَاتَّقَوْا. وَلَوْ أَنَّهُمْ آمَنُوا وَاتَّقَوْا. If only they had believed and had taqwa. If only they believed and feared Allah. This means to abandon sihr, to abandon magic, means to believe and to have fear of Allah. Right? So to engage in magic means not to believe and not to have fear of Allah. So this is an additional evidence that to engage in magic is actually disbelief. So once all of this is clear, and we'll look in a bit more detail into sihr itself when we come to Shaykh Ubayd's explanation. But moving on from this, we now come to the issue of what happens when a person is actually afflicted with magic itself. And so when a person is afflicted with magic, then it is not permissible or desirable for a person to go to the magicians themselves in order to remove this magic, because this itself is participating in disbelief. To go to a magician and to ask him to remove magic or to ask for his assistance, this now is you participating in the disbelief. Because the one who chooses to go to a magician, then this person is clearly pleased with the action of the magician. This now is rida. You are pleased that the magician should engage in what he's going to engage in order to remove this magic. And because sihr is kufr, then this is being pleased with kufr. And that is disbelief. Also, we believe that sihr obviously is true and real, just like the evil eye is true and real, that it is the truth, and that sihr, it is something that, from its effects is that it leads a person to be ill, to fall ill. And this happened to the Messenger of Allah ﷺ. He was, magic was put upon him, and this is established in the Sunnah of Allah's Messenger ﷺ. No one denies this, no one denies the reality of magic except a mulhid. Someone who is a disbeliever or an atheist. And to reject it and to deny it is disbelief, because sihr is true and real, just like the evil eye is true and real. And any person who persists, because there are some, for example, the Mu'tazila, they deny that there is magic, because they believe that the reason cannot prove it or establish it. But anyone who persists upon denying the reality of sihr after the proof is clearly established from the Sunnah, then this person, this then is irtidad, this is apostasy. Because now you are essentially declaring the Messenger of Allah to be a liar. You are making takdeeb of the Messenger of Allah, because he has clearly affirmed magic, and he himself had magic done upon him for a period of perhaps 6 months or so. And so this now is clear takdeeb, it's clear denial of what we have been informed of by the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So coming back to the issue of treatment of magic, anyone who is afflicted with magic, then the way to treat it is by way of strengthening one's iman, doing deeds just to strengthen one's iman, and using the mu'awwadhatayn, the last 2 surahs or the last 3 surahs of the Quran, including Surah Al-Ikhlas, and adding to that other affairs like Surah Yasin, Ayatul Kursi in particular, I meant to say. And any other surahs the Shaykh mentions which are known from experience, through experience, such as Surah Safat, for example, the 37th surah, and the first 10 or 15, first 10 verses or so, are known by experience to be very good for treating magic. That's the 37th surah, verses 1 to 10. And likewise many other ayat in the Quran, this ayah as well, verse 102, Surah Al-Baqarah, and likewise the various supplications which are found in the Sunnah. All of these a person can cure themselves by way of these means. And even in terms of the effects of magic, because sometimes magic has physical effects, then a person can use medicines as well. So even that's permissible as well, to treat the symptoms of magic. So there are ways and means which are shar'i, and there are ways and means which are qadari. Shar'i meaning recitation of the Quran, the supplications and ruqya and so on and so forth, and qadari meaning from the ways and means that Allah has created, from the medicines and substances and things like that, which a person from which a person has relief from pain. So the Shaykh says, after this, as for treating magic with magic, then this is inviting to disbelief. It leads to disbelief, and it is participating in disbelief itself. After this, the author, rahimahullah, he said, "Man fa'alahu aw radiya bihi kafar." The one who engages in it, or the one who is pleased with it, then he has disbelieved. So this shows that even if a person does not engage in it, even if he does not even learn it, but he is pleased with magic, it pleases him, then, and he doesn't reject it, then this person becomes a disbeliever just by the pleasure itself. Right? Even if he does not have any knowledge of it, and even if he does not engage in it himself. So, in summary then, sihr is disbelief, to learn it, ta'allum, to teach it, ta'aleem, to be pleased with it, even if you don't learn it or teach it, and to engage in it. Right? There are 4 affairs altogether. To learn it, to teach it, to be pleased with it, and to engage in it. So all of this is very, very clear and very apparent. And then in the Sunnah we find that the punishment, the had for the sahir is al-qatl. Haddu sahir darbatun bis-sayf. Right? So in the Sunnah it's very clear that the ruling, the prescribed punishment for the sahir is obviously a striking with the sword. And Umar bin al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, to all of his deputies, to all of the people who, in positions of power, he ordered them, he sent a letter to them, أَنُقْتُلُوا كُلَّ سَاحِرٍ وَسَاحِرَةٍ. Right, so he made that command to all of the people in authority. Likewise, we know from the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, there are some of the Sahaba that did likewise. Hafsa bint Umar, the wife of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she ordered the had to be prescribed upon a slave girl who performed magic on her. And Jundub bin Ka'ab radiallahu anhu, he once came across some magicians in the courts of Bani Umayyah. And there was a magician, he was just providing entertainment and amusement to the people in the presence, in the court. And he was making people to believe or to imagine that he was killing a person and then bringing him back to life again. Right? So it would make it look as if he was chopping his head off and then him coming back to life again with his body being reunited with his head. So Jundub bin Ka'ab, as he came and he saw all of this, he slowly approached and came next to this sahir and struck him with the sayf. And then he said to the people that if this man is truthful, then let him bring himself back to life. And so this is another example. And then Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala, he said that the establishment of this ruling, this had upon the magician, is established from 3 of the companions of Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from Umar, from Hafsa, and from Jundub bin Ka'ab. Right? So this is mentioned because it is establishing that from the practice of the Sahaba is the implementation of this had. So to end the speech of Shaykh Muhammad Aman, he simply says that as-sihr min ashadd al-muharramat, sihr is from the most severe of unlawful things. And it is unlawful, it is impermissible to learn it, to teach it, or to treat with it. Rather, the one who is inflicted with magic is only treated with whatever Allah has legislated for us by way of the ruqya shar'iyya, legislated recitations from the Quran and the Sunnah, and the invocations, and likewise the permissible forms of treatment in terms of the worldly sense, the medicinal treatments. So that's the end of the brief commentary of Shaykh Muhammad Aman, and we'll come now to the explanation of Shaykh Ubayd, which is slightly more detailed. And so some of the stuff will be repetitive, but it's good just as a reminder. So he begins, حفظه الله, by mentioning the text of the Nawaqid السحر ومنه الصرف والعطف فمن فعله أو رضي به كفر والدليل قوله تعالى وما يعلمان من أحد حتى يقولا إنما نحن فتنة فلا تكفر. The Shaykh says there are numerous points that we can mention in explanation of this, and the first of them is what is the meaning of sihr? And so just to repeat the same thing again, a sihr is whatever is hidden, subtle, not perceived, whose causes or ways and means are hidden and unperceivable. And the Shaykh gives the example of eating the sahur, when a person at night, in the darkness of the night, gets up to eat the small meal before the fast, and no one else knows that these people are up and awake. They don't perceive or see, or because they're asleep themselves. Right, so all of this gives the concept of something being hidden. And in the legislated sense, the meaning of sihr is incantations or knots which are made which affect the hearts and the bodies. Right? Which affect the hearts and the bodies. And then the Shaykh says that after looking at everything, all the evidences, this is a concise definition I can give, a comprehensive definition. As-sihr, magic, is everything which affects the hearts and the bodies. Magic is everything which affects the hearts and the bodies, by which enmity is intended. Enmity and transgression and crime against someone else is intended, against the target person, and which is done by way of incantations and spells and knots which are blown on, ropes and things like that, or which makes the use of potions. Right? All of this comes under what is known as magic. Anything which affects the hearts and the bodies, by which harm is intended, enmity, transgression, crime to affect the target person, and which is effected by way of incantations, spells, tying knots in things, blowing upon them, or the use of potions and things like that. So that's the first thing. We covered this already. The second point is that, again, the evidence from the verse, that is clear evidence that the one who engages in sihr is a disbeliever. And he mentions the same verse, وَمَا يُعَلِّمَانِ مِنْ أَحَدٍ حَتَّى يَقُولَا إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ فِتْنَةٌ فَلَا تَكْفُرْ. So we covered this point already as well. The third point, the Shaykh goes on to remain on this point and says that this is further clarified by the fact that, first of all, the two angels, when they came, they would warn any person that they were going to teach magic to. And they would say, beware, beware, we are a trial, do not disbelieve. And so this verse makes it clear that magic is disbelief. The additional point also is that the Shaykh then goes on to mention the whole verse at length to give the context. And this verse is revealed in connection with the Yahud. With the Yahud in the time of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, who disbelieved. So they were expecting a messenger according to the Torah. When this messenger came and they realized that he was not from the Yahud, but he's from the Arab, so they became arrogant and they disbelieved in him. And so that's the context of this verse which comes. And in this verse, Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, وَاتَّبَعُوا مَا تَتْلُو الشَّيَاطِينَ عَلَى مُلْكِ سُلَيْمَانَ. That these Yahud here present in the time of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, who denied the Messenger, they themselves are followers of what the devils in the time of Suleiman, what they, those devils who disbelieved and who were engaging in sihr, in magic. Right? So these Yahud here were the followers of the magic of those devils in the time of Suleiman alayhi salam. So the ayah says, وَاتَّبَعُوا مَا تَتْلُو الشَّيَاطِينُ عَلَى مُلْكِ سُلَيْمَانَ وَمَا كَفَرَ سُلَيْمَانَ. Suleiman did not disbelieve, because the Yahud made a claim that Suleiman engaged in magic and he disbelieved. But this is not true. Allah Azza wa Jal, He frees Suleiman alayhi salam of this charge. He says, وَمَا كَفَرَ سُلَيْمَانَ. Suleiman did not disbelieve, وَلَكِنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ كَفَرُوا. It was the devils who were subdued by him and who were workers for him, that it was they who disbelieved. يُعَلِّمُونَ النَّاسَ السِّحْرَ. They are the ones who taught the people magic. So it wasn't Sulaiman, it was these shayateen who taught magic to the people. وَمَا أُنزِلَ عَلَى الْمَلَكَيْنِ بِبَابِلَ هَارُوتَ وَمَارُوتَ. And likewise, what was revealed to the angels, Harut and Marut, in Babylon. So magic was sent to them likewise, to Harut and Marut, in order to put the people to trial. Then this part of the verse comes, وَمَا يُعَلِّمَانِ مِنْ أَحَدٍ حَتَّى يَقُولَا إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ فِتْنَةٌ فَلَا تَكْفُرْ. And they would not teach anyone until they first said, do not disbelieve, we are a trial, so do not disbelieve. فَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ مِنْهُمَا مَا يُفَرِّقُونَ بِهِ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَزَوْجِهِ. So then the people began to learn from these angels that by which they could separate between a man and his wife. وَمَا هُمْ بِضَارِّينَ بِهِ مِنْ أَحَدٍ حَتَّى إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. And وَمَا هُمْ بِضَارِّينَ بِهِ مِنْ أَحَدٍ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. That they would not be able to harm anyone except by the permission of Allah. So in other words, magic itself is from the ways and means, and it is something that Allah allows. If it will take place, it will take place, and if it doesn't, it will not take place. وَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ مَا يَضُرُّهُمْ وَلَا يَنْفَعُهُمْ. And they began to learn what harms them and does not benefit them. وَلَقَدْ عَلِمُوا لَمَنِ اشْتَرَاهُ مَا لَهُ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنْ خَلَاقٍ. And they knew that anyone who purchases anything from this magic, he will have no share in the hereafter, meaning he will be a disbeliever. وَلَبِئْسَ مَا شَرَوْا بِهِ أَنفُسَهُمْ وَلَوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ. How evil it is a price that they have purchased, or how evil it is that they have sold themselves the price, a miserable price that they have sold themselves, if they only knew. لَوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ. So this is the whole passage, and it's in the context of the Yahud, the Jews, in the time of the Messenger of Allah. They engaged in magic, and that magic they inherited from the devils in the time of Sulaiman, passed on, generation after generation. And it was, as we know, Labid bin al-A'sam al-Yahudi was the one who did magic upon the Messenger of Allah. So from this verse and the context of this verse now, there are numerous points that we can take from this, and the Shaykh then goes on to mention some of them. First of all is that spreading magic and it being spread amongst the people of Islam is from the actions of the Yahud. Right? That the spread of sihr and implementing it and spreading it amongst the people of Islam, it is from the deeds of the Yahud. And we know that from Bani Israel were those who disbelieved, because Harut and Marut was sent to Bani Israel, and those who learned that magic, they became disbelievers. They were the disbelievers of Bani Israel, right? There were the believers of Bani Israel and there were disbelievers of Bani Israel. So these are the disbelievers of Bani Israel. And a subset of them are the Yahud, because the Bani Israel are 12 tribes. And amongst them, one of them is the Yahud. And so they inherited this. And so they are the ones who follow this in the mulk of Sulaiman, in the time of Sulaiman alayhi salam. Number two, second thing that we take from this verse is that the devils clearly were the ones who taught people this magic in the time of Sulaiman alayhi salam. So they began to teach the people the incantations, the spells, and all the various, times and moments and things like this. And in reality, if we just pause at this point for a few moments, and when we look at magic and how it really works, really the shayateen, the devils, their aim and their goal is to make people disbelieve by engaging in the worship of other things besides Allah. Whether it is worshipping the jinn themselves, whether it is worshipping the stars or the planets, or whether it is worshipping, by way of making sacrifices for jinn or for other things like this. This is what their aim and objective is. To achieve this objective, they will do favors for those who are willing to sell themselves for a miserable price, willing to sell their faith and sell their Iman and sell their Islam. So if you look at many of the ways that magic is actually implemented, you will see that there are a lot of specific details that are often involved. The shayateen, for example, will say to the magician, wait until, for example, such and such planet is aligned in such and such a place in such and such time in the night or whatever, and then take an animal, take a chicken or something else, and go to a certain place and sacrifice it there. And so you find that there's a very specific things which are involved in setting up the magic and giving effect to it. And these practices are clearly shirk, because they involve veneration of the planets, worship of the stars, worship of the jinn, of the shayateen, and things like this. And this is how magic actually takes effect. So the point being here that the devils, they were the first of those people who implemented magic and then spread it amongst the people, taught it to the people as a means of making them disbelieve, to make them worship others besides Allah. And this is, the goal of the shayateen, the goal of shaitan, Iblis. And so anyone who basically enters into this realm, enters into this field, engages in magic either because they want to earn money by, pretending to cure people or to give vengeance to people. Someone has a family dispute with an uncle or auntie, something, and they're full of, want revenge. Come to a magician and they'll put magic on that person, right? So these are really the base desires in people, right? Within people there is greed, there is envy, there is lust, there is jealousy. These are what we call the filth of the hearts. So there are those people with this type of filth. And then you have the magicians who they exploit the presence of these filthy traits in people, and they earn a living out of giving effect to people's lust and desires, right? So the magicians then, they will say, well, if you want to bring two people together, or if you want to marry someone, we can arrange that for you. If you like someone, you love someone, we can get them to like you, and things like this. So these are all the base desires and the filth and the whatever else that you find in the hearts of the people. The magicians, knowing this is present in the people, they will then exploit that in order to get monetary benefit, right? Financial benefit, or it could be more than financial benefit. So what they then do is people come to them and pay them, and they take money from the people, and they will go, and obviously they themselves have to commit disbelief in order to win the assistance of the devils, right? So then the devils will come along, and then they will go and they'll make that uncle ill, or go mad or something, or lose his mind or something else, right? So they'll do whatever the person asks to be done. So this is really the nature of what's going on. So all of this, really, the way to look at it is really magic as an arena is really a playground for the shayateen. And the shayateen, they have an allegiance with the magicians have an allegiance with the shayateen, and all of this is a playground by which they harm people and play around with the bodies and minds of people. And those people who have filth in their hearts of greed and envy and lust and jealousy and all the really base filthy qualities, right? They're the ones who basically go to the magicians and try to give effect to their lust and desires by making use of magic. So basically the shayateen here are the ones who taught it and they spread it, and they play and fool with the people on account of this. The third point from this verse is that Sulaiman alayhi salam is declared innocent from the claim of the Yahud, the claim of the Jews, that Solomon was a magician, right? So the Bani Israel split into two groups. One group said that Sulaiman was a magician and he disbelieved, so he wasn't a genuine prophet or messenger, he's a disbeliever. Another group said that if Suleiman practiced magic, it means that practicing magic must be okay. So from them were those Yahud who then wholesale adopted the use of magic and thought it was basically it's all right, it's okay. And there was so basically those were the two groups that generally appeared amongst the Yahud. So that's why amongst the Yahud you'll see two views. Solomon was not a prophet, he was a disbeliever, heretic, well, Solomon did magic, therefore it's a legitimate ways and means, right? So in this ayah, Allah Azza wa Jal, He declares Sulaiman alayhi salam innocent from the claim of the Yahud, and established that it was the devils who were guilty of all of this. Fourth point from this ayah is that we know that the shayateen, these devils, were subjected to Sulaiman's use. And just because they were under his command does not mean that anything they did can be thrown upon Sulaiman alayhi salam. Right? This does not follow. And the example the Shaykh gives is, look, for example, the hypocrites in the time of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They ascribed to Islam, they ascribed to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, outwardly at least. So in a sense they are following outwardly what appears to be the case, but in reality they are disbelievers, and so their deeds, their evil deeds and so on and so forth cannot be ascribed to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And another example that can be given is the son of Nuh alayhi salam. The son of Nuh alayhi salam, who is a disbeliever, but he is from the offspring, he's the son of Nuh. So from that point of view, as a family, as a son of his father, outwardly it seems that he's with his father, but his deeds of disbelief, can they be ascribed to his father? And the answer is no, they cannot be ascribed to his father. So similarly here, when we see that these shayateen, these jinns and these devils were subjected by Allah Azza wa Jal to Sulaiman for his use, does not mean that whatever they did of disbelief and so on and so forth can be ascribed to Sulaiman himself. That's the fourth point that we need to be aware of. The fifth point is that the same issue, وَمَا يُعَلِّمَانِ, they did not teach anyone until they said, do not disbelieve, we are a trial. So this is advice that was given by the two angels, and this is from the wisdom of Allah Azza wa Jal. Someone might ask, well, why would Allah put evil? And the answer to this is all from Allah's wisdom. It is to distinguish between the true believer and the believer who falls into disbelief, to distinguish between the people of Iman and the people of Kufr. And so to give people knowledge of magic and the use of the assistance of devils, it is from the wisdom of Allah Azza wa Jal to do that, just like it is from the wisdom of Allah Azza wa Jal that He will bring a person that we refer to as ad-Dajjal. Ad-Dajjal. Allah will send a person called ad-Dajjal at the end of time with great evil, and it will distinguish between the people of Iman and the people of Kufr, people of disbelief. And that's the wisdom behind Allah's action of sending such an evil person. In a similar manner, likewise with magic. In a similar manner, likewise with things like disease, with death, with famine, things like this. There are wisdoms behind these affairs which Allah decrees and which He legislates. And magic is one of those things. There are many things intended behind magic. From them is to distinguish between the people of Iman and people of disbelief. From them is to try the people in their faith and to give them a means of showing patience and using the Quran and the Sunnah and invoking Allah and so on and so forth. So it's a means towards many, many ends. So the point being then, the fifth point here is to distinguish, it's a trial to distinguish between truthful people from people of falsehood. The sixth point that we take from this verse is that the verse says to us, in the verse it occurs, وَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ مَا يَضُرُّهُمْ وَلَا يَنْفَعُهُمْ, that the magician, he's really learning what harms him, not what benefits him. And this is because magic in and of itself is pure harm. Even if the person receives some temporary benefit, right? So no doubt there is some small amount of benefit for the magician or for the person who wants the magic done. The magician earns some money, for example. Or the one who wanted the magic done, maybe his vengeance has been realized. You know, he's made someone who he hates to fall ill or to suffer some harm, right? So this is a temporary benefit for that person. But this benefit is only illusory, right? Because magic in and of itself is pure harm. Is pure harm. And this is because in the hereafter, that person will be guilty or is guilty of disbelief, and in the hereafter that person will suffer the consequences of his deeds, right? So therefore, learning magic is pure harm. There is no benefit in it at all, except what is illusory and temporal. And also, all of the deeds which arise, on account of magic, all of this action is khabith, and it is haram earnings. And that's why zakah, charity and zakah cannot be given from the wealth of a magician. It is invalid. It is haram earning. Allah does not accept it at all. Rather, Allah only accepts what is tayyib, what is wholesome, pure, and He only accepts statements and deeds which are tayyib, which are wholesome and pure. The seventh point that we take from this is that magic is true and real. A man is indeed separated from his wife, and a wife is indeed separated from her husband by way of magic. This is true and real, and it takes place. And this is a refutation of, as we said, the Mu'tazila, who are the modernists or the rationalists, and they deny things which they believe cannot be accepted by reason. And this position itself is false, and it assumes that everything in the creation of Allah can be understood and fathomed by reason, which is false. This is evidently false, and we know just from experience that this is false, because if you went back 500 years, and you would see that the people had a particular knowledge of the workings of the world. And then 200 years later, they had a different knowledge of the workings of the world. And now today, we have a different knowledge. And today, we realize that, you can communicate by way of waves and things like this. And there's all sorts of things we understand about the creation of Allah that we didn't have knowledge of before. So, if you were a Mu'tazili, if you were upon this modernist, rationalist way of thinking, let's say 1,000 years ago, and someone said to you, it is possible to speak to someone on the other side of the earth simultaneously, at the same time, they would say, well, this does not agree with reason, so we deny it. But now in the 19th and 20th centuries, now that they discovered electromagnetic waves and things like this, and through that we can send data and we can communicate, that shows that this position that we only accept what reason can accept and what can rationally be understood, we know that position is false. It is false. And so, likewise here with this issue of magic, there are those people who are present today who ascribe to Islam, and they say, well, there are many things which are mentioned in the Quran and Sunnah we can't understand. Magic is just a figment of the imagination. The punishment in the grave, it can't really be fathomed. How can a body in the grave be punished? How can a soul be punished? We don't see anything. If we dig the grave, we can't see anything. How can this be true? All right? So all of this is a false position. And, this is known to be false by text and also even by reason itself. Reason itself falsifies this claim that we only accept what reason accepts. Reason itself falsifies this position by the examples that I just gave you. Right? Right? There are times and situations where the rational mind can't accept certain things, like it can't accept a person seeing someone else on the other side of the earth at the same time and speaking to them and seeing them. Many hundreds of years ago, this would be rationally unacceptable. But now it's perfectly possible, because we didn't know the amazing ways that Allah has created His creation to allow these benefits for mankind. right? So it is from reason to accept that the reason cannot fathom everything. And it opposes reason to claim that the only thing that we can accept as true and real is what reason can accept and what is rationally understandable, right? So this is a refutation then of the Mu'tazila, those who basically claim, well, we only accept what the mind can actually accept in terms of science and which we can explain by ways and means, things like that, right? This is a false position. So, and this is false because of text, because the text of the Quran and Sunnah clearly established that magic is true and real, and also by way of reason itself, as we've established. So these are some of the benefits, 6 or 7 benefits taken from this particular verse, which Shaykh al-Islam mentioned in the text of his Nawaaqid, of the nullifier that he mentioned. And this now leads us to the next issue, which is discussing as-sarf wal-ataf, because Shaykh al-Islam said, وَمِنْهُ as-sarf wal-ataf. And what we'll do is, inshallah ta'ala, we'll leave that and continue discussing that inshallah ta'ala in the next lesson. We've come to close to the end of our time, so we'll conclude our lesson there at this point inshallah ta'ala, and we'll continue with that in the next lesson. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.